Okay, good evening, dear friends. Glad to see you here and open this year lecture series with the first one, which is organized by the Faculty of Architecture of Estonian Academy of Arts, and the lecture series is supported by Estonian Cultural Endowment. It was 2020, I guess, when we planned a lecture series called Baltic Bubble. Then was the COVID period, and basically all European countries' borders were closed already. Only borders which were open was Baltic states borders. And just before the first lecture, all Baltic countries closed the borders as well. Yes, that was the year 2020. But luckily we are back. And this year lecture series has a bit different name called Close Enough. But I have to say that concerning the situation, what we have at the moment in Europe, in the world, I think the connotation of the lecture series has been changed. And I think it's important to think at the moment what is happening in Ukraine and how important it is to be close enough with our neighbors and friends around us. I would like to give now the floor and mic for the Johan Tolli, who is this semester curator. So please join me. Welcome, Johan.
Hello. Actually, this idea of looking at the Baltic states, or this kind of region where we live, is not that new. I mean, maybe let's phrase it that it's not new for me, because in 2014, when I met these guys, we started work on a project called the Baltic Pavilion, and in 2016 we took it to Venice. The road in those 2 years to go to Venice was actually not so much of a kind of design task or a curatorial task, but it was a task of collaboration. And it was a task of looking at this region where we operate. And now, 6 years later, I think it's actually quite a good time to, first of all, use this kind of collaborative base to and these people that we invited to explore what kind of work is being done in the Baltics, as everyone that did the Venice Biennale in 2016 has moved on with their creative practices. And I can kind of give you a short intro or kind of future promise about this semester. We will have 3 lectures, and surprise, surprise, all the lecturers are curators of the Baltic Pavilion. And actually this came as a kind of surprise. This was not intended to be so. I'm not here just inviting my friends, but I value this friendship very dearly. I also value the work very dearly. And the idea was that we kind of turn our focus from international superstars that do kind of globally important work to work that actually kind of rises and becomes important from its kind of origin in the region. And we look at the region and we look at what actually makes us do or makes us practice the way we practice in our kind of specific locations here in the Baltics, be it Lithuania, be it Latvia, be it Finland, be it Sweden, or even Russia. We actually even had a plan to invite someone from Russia. Unfortunately, this is very difficult at the moment because the kind of both the physical and the kind of mental borders between those two worlds that actually, for some, still form one region, culturally and also geopolitically, is very kind of fragile at the moment. So we will postpone this Russian lecture a bit into a more optimistic future. But still, we have 3 lecturers that are operating all over the Baltics, but they're operating in Sweden, Poland. I mean, it's not just about Lithuanian architecture or Latvian architecture. It's about really about practices that operate within the context that we have here. And I think this is really what this semester is about, of looking at where we are, like me as a practitioner, you as future practitioners, to see really like what kind of architecture and what kind of design and what kind of spaces we create here in our own specific environment. Because more and more it's becoming kind of a topic. Like, for example, there's a Latvian art school, art academy opening up architecture department now. And they have stated that their focus is on Baltic space. Rightfully so. Riga used to be a big center for the whole Baltic region, but they're looking at the Baltic space as a kind of almost as an abstract kind of glue that holds this kind of practitioners together. So without further ado, let me first next speak a bit about Petras and Ona. I think one key word to understand their work is how I got to meet them, meaningly through collaboration. They always work in collaboration and in cooperation. So they basically, all their projects, they cooperate with a kind of outside force or an outside practice. They do projects ranging from infrastructure, from bridges to big public buildings. But one important thing that I've noticed in their work is that they can look into space for a very special audience, namely the Lithuanian and especially Vilnius art scene. They've become this kind of go-to architects or go-to designers when it comes to exhibition design in the CAC in Vilnius. They also get to do a lot of kind of exhibition projects abroad. And what this does is this opens up a weird kind of small-scale kind of design task for them to kind of orchestrate a very specific, peculiar space for a very specific, peculiar artist or kind of condition. I think I'll give over the mic to them, and they can continue talking about this. So join me, please join me welcoming Petras and Ona from Vilnius.
Hello.
Hello everyone. It's like really good to see you here, and many thanks for inviting us. Indeed, in this light of when humanity is being threatened, it's not an easy for us to give a lecture now and to find some points, relevant in the architecture. So there's gonna be no lecture tonight. Instead, we're gonna offer you some walk to have a look at things what we've done, and we'll try to make sense about those things and thoughts that are around. So, as Johan shortly mentioned, we are kind of a young studio working in various fields. Maybe there is no need to double introduce us. You'll see that through our projects further, but I'm kind of warning you that we have 150 pages tonight. We try to be quick, and please stop us if somewhere we are too long, or ask if we're too short. I'm pretty sure we're gonna forget something. I'm almost certain for that, because the mind is a bit blurry, but let's start. So actually, we use each lecture as well to map our practice in various ways. So each lecture for us is more and more to gather and to connect things we are working on. maybe some few words on.
This is an area of all spaces which we did interventions either through creating the spaces itself, like this maybe the biggest square road museum, bridges as objects in an environment, or exhibition spaces with particular interventions, interiors. So maybe it's an array and a sample board, everything in one scale, just to some certain map of our pattern.
Timeline and the material line. Actually, this is you see on your left side where we started, and on your right side you see where we are currently. This is we don't want to comment on this much, but just please feel. So we start with a little structure here. Of course, we are operating in various fields and various ideas, but there are 3 points that we strongly feel that are always there in any project we do. And it is territories, material flows, and collaborations. We name it as our main points where we start our practice. Territories. So here you see the exhibition we done in 2017, when we've been invited to investigate a bit Lithuania's capital's Vilnius landscape. I try not to be long here, but just to show you the structure and the thinking we offered here, and that's how we basically landed into investigating the landscape through it. So we've been invited both to curate the exhibition as well as provide a design. And we offered some certain structure of a square, as you see here, where each side of a square represents the extracts of theories and political influence on the landscape, and inside, meanwhile, we kind of offered a passage through the various, geographic proximities. No, we offered more important Vilnius points of landscape were arranged in a geographical kind of proximities. So if you walk through this, you kind of experience the ideas realized or not of a city. Maybe not to kind of dive here a lot, I shortly show you some images, how it works, as well the design. Maybe you want to tell some word on the design? It's
an exhibition about landscape discipline, first of all, and also the territory. And as Ona said, it was divided into kind of layers. So it's a square, multi-layered way to show those different narratives, and we decided to make some certain infrastructural garden, so that it's kind of it's not a linear sequence. It is every column generates one theme, and
extract of
what Ona said, and also it creates some particular maze where you can find very different connections between different pillars of content.
And you can experience the existing and not existing, and kind of imagine how landscape is being managed by powers and theories who just very little of it gets realized. So the booklet. Yeah.
We should say it became a book. So it's like maybe this project represents one of the aspects of our practices. We are research oriented, and
the next thing we were working on was on 2018 in Nida's art colony. Exhibition was called Performing Scapes. There were many participants in it, and we were being invited to kind of provide exhibition architecture as well as some sort of work. And here we propose to look at the body of Curonian spit through various lenses, sorry, I'm like really. Can I have water? In various scales, through research, planning, and implementing. We called our work Performing Scapes here. So I'm not gonna dive much here, just to show the tools we were using for our work. We basically went through all kind of research work as well as management work and how they actually implementing it now or previous days. Here maybe it is just like really nice to mention the many people we were collaborating on, the ones who basically were organizing those works of forming the landscape in Curonian spit. This was like this each exhibition for us is like a very nice gathering of many collaborators, and this was also a big kind of discovery for us. Here you see some sort of works where the extracts from our research, the body of Curonian spit, you see it's kind of done in two pieces here.
it is a geological infrastructure which was made in as a reaction to ecological catastrophe which came after humans deforested this peninsula, and it happened somewhere in 18th century when they started actually implementing on like real like credible plans of reforestification. So all that peninsula is actually a body of human activity which tried to prevent sanding, storming from sea into and maybe and this is again like maybe a research which concluded as an exhibition, as some certain like installation which explains the connections between different artifacts in presence of space and with a narrative inside space.
Mm-hmm.
So another research project, and we also do some reactions to our researches. This one project is a bridge in Vilnius. We participated in a competition. Actually, there will be 3 bridges now. We will try to explain 3 of them consequently, one by one. We won 3 competitions in a row with some certain mindset, and maybe I'll try to explain. Maybe that makes sense these days. Maybe also these winnings are a reaction that maybe we thought about something relevant. There was a competition in the outskirts of city to connect like a park and city center to Plattenbaum district. And what we did at first, we kind of did a research and we realized that the organizers actually missed something. And the diagram above shows superimposition of two maps, and you see there is an island there in the middle of the river. It was somehow missed by city planners and organizers of the competition, etc. So we did more inquiries, like of mappings, and we made particular urban argument that this island is very important, even though it was integrated into land somewhere in 19th century. And through this, our proposal for the competition actually was to relocate the bridge, not to build where they were proposing, but actually to somehow connect it with this, well, object of our research. Yeah, it is in the middle of, maybe this slide just describes one of the ways how we understood that actually there is an island there. Well, you can see the geology of riverbanks, like, and where the bridge is placed somehow already gave us a hint that it's some certain specific terrace. And actually, what we realized that that terrace was disconnected by, it was an island. So it's a proposal of some certain public infrastructure, which is a connection, a bridge, but also we, through this findings, through our research, also we try to expand it as a program in two different ways. One of them, like finding the island, we proposed to make the bridge twice shorter, and instead of, well, doing it, supposed to be done according to the script, brief, and everybody followed that. We replaced it, we made it differently. We used the island as object to kind of make it shorter, and we proposed that you kind of crossing the river, you land on the territory, not using infrastructure but a park. So we kind of reframed the program, and we said, like, let's make less infrastructure, more landscape. And also we proposed, in that sense, some kind of a hybrid bridge, which had, maybe I'll not explain all ideas, but hybrid bridge in the sense that we introduce a garden on the top of it. So we try to create we propose to create a, maybe I need some slide to cover that, right? We propose to create like a terrace and a garden on top of the bridge as a continuation and connection between these two green areas. Island park, which we presented to the city as instead of a bridge, and the big park. Then also I need to say one thing which could be called some certain architect guerrilla thing. The city always had a bridge, a little bit like not in the situation where they planned, and it had a policy and a debate, should it be a bridge for cars and people or just for pedestrians, and there was a long quarrel about it. Eventually they decided to make a pedestrian, but all the criteria, the way it was described, was that actually it could be transformable into a car bridge. So like not only moving it out of their expected territory, we also presented this, you see, like ends which are splitting, and we propose a bridge that is impossible to actually transform into car-oriented environment. So it was one of our secret plans which cannot be unfolded back. And just to say, there is one example of the very same scheme, how city planners actually propose a pedestrian environment bridge, and in Vilnius, and it was then transformed into a car bridge. It is nearby the city castle. Anyway, a hybrid bridge, which presents not only a link but also a public space. It tries to expand the public space. The idea of public infrastructure expanding the public space, maybe that is what is interesting for us. Okay, some pictures of what happened. We are doing this project, actually it's almost finished as a procedure. We'll start soon building it in Vilnius. Another project, also public infrastructure, public space, and it's in Kaunas. It's actually 2 bridges. One of them we already built. It's in the middle of huge urban transformation. And again, like the brief was, well, a mere link. We tried to expand both of the bridges. First of all, maybe through this slide, we tried to expand them again as a program. We wanted to, again, we used this particularly similar attitude. It's not only a link but a public space, and presented 2 bridges which hybrids. One of them is a bridge plaza. It's on the right side. Another was a bridge with amphitheaters. So in this case we proposed 2 infrastructural objects which generate public space with terraces and different layers nearby the riverfront, solving different problems, but in both cases expanding the structure so that it creates more suitable or gathering criteria. Also, like we work contextually, and we kind of dig into the history of transformations of this area. Actually, this island is something similar as Nida, a research object, this peninsula. This island was not here. It's not natural island, even though it looks natural. It's all green park now, but actually it is a cover-up of a previous port. It was an industrial area and was biggest inland port in this, like, territories. There are some pictures there, maybe black and white. You can see some evidences, but all this port was transformed. And, during Soviet times, maybe I'll not explain all the traumas of the city which also happened there, like with highways, etc., losing identity and like some certain characters around the river. Through this research we realized, do you see a mouse somewhere? Is it? No, it's not. Okay. You see that picture on the very right, on the top right? We kind of, and both of them, we kind of overlaid what's existing, what was there, and we realized that actually, even though it, like almost 90% of the bridge, or of the territory was totally reframed after this port disappeared, but the very edge, which our bridge actually is, I'll need to go there. The very edge, you see where our bridges are actually create a border between big territory of island and that small territory. And the small territory actually didn't change almost at all. And I mean, it was our investigation and a conclusion. And then through already then developing a project, we won a competition first of all, but through developing a project, we proposed the city not to overdevelop it, to stop the development nearby our bridges. So we made some particular proposals and changed some plans of redeveloping an island. All of it is now construction site. We, through our research, and here I want to just make a statement that always good to make research and then give something back to not only to your project but wider discussions, and actually we somehow preserved that part for maybe further investigations. So in this project we expanded like the program of the bridges, but through the research also we changed some plans of the city, trying to preserve identities. Also as a object of, as a process, and through this bridge we created an exhibition. So like to make our initial proposals as much public as possible, and we created some certain assembly possibility for several weeks for people to look at the exhibition. We try to promote it. We try to get as much feedback. So the format, how we kind of developed the project was also quite public. And one of them is we are finishing to build. Another is still coming. Third project, again, like particular environment, and actually the first of the bridges which we won was in Seoul, and well, maybe not to expand here too much, I just want to describe the concept, which we presented a hybrid bridge park and pedestrian path and a habitat bridge. And the task was which we tried to also, we kind of a little bit disobeyed the task. But the task was to separate, well, habitat bridge and link, and to create two different environments on the top of one public infrastructure. Here, on top of highway, which is devastating modernist project, but also it brought the country on its feet, and it became an economical miracle actually starting from this highway, from what we know. And this project was to reconnect habitat and people walking through between mountains, and but still through segregation as a task. So we tried to confront that. We tried to propose something more coherent. So and we presented a bridge which is a slope and a path itself. And through that, we proposed not to have a barrier between these spaces, but just continue the landscape character and the separation of animal environment and people just with a mere landscape, different altitudes. Well, that was one of the reasons why we won, and we developed this project. We kind of finished it, but unfortunately the mayor died, who was commissioner, so now we don't get we are not sure if it's built or not, but it just happened last year. It's fresh news. Yeah, so it's another hybrid kind of. We try to sometimes when you enter a brief, like, and three of these examples actually tried to somehow manipulate and change the brief, actually expand some criterias, and it was also reasons why we won and reasons why for us it's interesting to speak about these projects. Yeah, this is like we are on the site with some our engineers. Just it's not a hoax. Territories. We are still in territories, and we spoke about infrastructure, public infrastructure, which we tried to expand the notion of public space through those projects. So now a competition which we almost won. We were disqualified. But we won second prize. But we got the best review by the recensents from abroad.
But actually the reason we've been disqualified was because we offered too many images.
Yeah,
so
we
it's just like some crazy guy.
Yeah, it was strategy for our practice, but project is still what it is. And it's a territory of a memory. It's a very traumatic territory in Lithuania. It's a Holocaust, biggest Holocaust territory around Vilnius, Paneriai. And we developed a strategy which somehow connects and highlights the very territory itself through particular interventions. We made inquiries on the discourse of Holocaust representation, and we understood that the ultimate goal we would like to present is that not to change the territory at all, so that it is so much monumental that actually you don't need to actually tricks on that territory. You don't need to represent it with additional tools, but like you need to prepare somebody to actually be present in this condition, but somehow to change the how you approach the condition, which is itself self-explicit. So yeah, maybe I'll not go to actually explain in the project, but it is a territory-oriented project with particular few interventions which actually discourse sensitive, let's say. Actually, like it was in 2014. Yeah, our first project. So the tragedy was like bigger than ever. Territory as environment for continuing memory. Maybe these are a few keywords. Another project which was we won actually this project, but it was not realized because of shift of government. Like I'm not sure how it is in Latvia, but in Lithuania it's like, you know, like it's like this checkers game, so it's black and white always, like, and whoever comes after, they swipe everything what was planned before. So we won this, but then they had some other ideas, new governments. But we won with the idea of a building which reflects infrastructural environment. It's a roads museum about road infrastructure, and it was a task, and we proposed a museum which in some sense is looking to itself. So with the two, we kind of concentrated all the proposal into one slab, which is hovering above untouched landscape, and all the content is under it and above it, and it had to be built out of also road infrastructural elements itself. So it would be a museum and artifact like in one place. Well, and again, it's some certain environment for research, and also environment which transcends wider territory or wider infrastructural environment concentrated in one spot. Territories, and now material flows.
Yeah, the next path gonna be about material flows, and here we will start with probably one of our smallest project we ever did. Not even a project, probably. At 2019, after a terrible reconstruction of CEC Contemporary Art Center Cafe, the owners invited us to help, not even make a project, but just to help. Obviously, all the money was already spent. What can you do? Normally, you would never do such a project, but just because of the place, the importance of the place in a city and so on, and the nostalgia we had, we started to think, how can we help here without doing even a project? And this was actually a moment where we started, I would say, working more profoundly with the materials. So we took a chance and we dived into materials, because this was the only way to kind of intrude the interior. So imagine the interior, which anything what's built is kind of shit, cheap cardboard, like with a cement facades and so on. All simulated. The only thing what was like really nice there was the dolomite walls that's coming from 60s, and yeah. So we took dolomite as the only important thing in the interior and thought, how can we charge it with other materials? I stop here for a moment. The circumstances was so that we were working on another home where the floors were being removed, the kind of newly made floors, concrete ones with the heating elements inside, as you see, and we use it as a chance to maybe give another cycle for the floors. So what we did was we took all those pieces, we kind of kept the geometry, this, you see, irregular geometry. We only chamfered the corners, and we offered kind of a new material for the tables, still keeping the same leg. Next material was a challenge for us to find something which would come also from today, but still, as a previous example, would would speak through the material urgencies of today. And this is Plasta factory. It's the largest polyethylene factory in Baltics and one of the largest in Europe. So we started to play with this. Okay, one thing maybe necessary to mention here. In Soviet times, the factory was the main manufacturer of plastic things, and now they are only recycling. They quit the line of basically making plastic things. So we jumped there and we started to experience like the material. This material you see here is actually what is the leftover when they kind of recycling the plastic. They wash it, and after they heat it, and the thing which still has, after the washing process, still has many small pieces of things, goes like that. So it's basically shit, you know, like, and it looks like that. So we thought it's like ideal material for the chairs of a
to sit on top in the seats,
for the chairs of a bar. So it's like very ironic, very communicating, and we won't go like deeper into this interior, but just so you feel the vibe. The next slide, we like kind of continued the language of this material, was fictional Lithuanian space agency that was that did represent Lithuania last year in Venice Biennale. It's founded by Julijonas Urbonas, the artist some of you probably might know. He had this idea of scanning the people and sending their bodies into the space so they form a new kind of planet. I don't know if many heard of it. It's of course very black humored, ironic thing about like humans, what we're doing here. So we dived here and offered something that we are calling space camping thing. It's it's like spine for infrastructure attached on two strings on both sides, like reflective walls, agency table which is turning, and the main thing scanner there. And for I would not go like deep into the details about the whole agency thing, just for you to see how the material basically works. Here, want to add something? Yeah, some maybe process of making a table for the agency.
Maybe just that what is maybe visible, that we can continue the research into this ex-fossil materiality, and we kind of expanded the field of meanings, what it can do also in this pavilion.
Yeah, and fossil meets another fossil here. And here we jump into another process, I would even say not a project. It's basically a first time when we jumped into the commercial field, it was of a great, I don't know, we had long debates whether to jump into commercial field or not, as previously we only worked into the cultural field, and you know, commerce is commerce. So, but we are like really happy, and just because of a client, we found a way to operate in a commercial field with 2 spaces now in Vilnius, which are optics. And here we also read our work as through a lens of material, even though, as you'll see, it's not like material itself. It's more like
not direct.
Not direct material. Yeah, not direct. But it's like material as a memory container. So first shop is located into the one very important pedestrian area in Vilnius, which actually is next to CAC building, Contemporary Art Center. We worked on a research again, trying to feel the urban fabric here, and while overlapping the things, we noticed that, I don't know if to jump into, okay, this is a very important area of Vilnius where the great Jewish synagogue was. It was bombarded during World War II. And together with all other buildings, they were replaced with new Soviet blocks. So we overlapped with the historical urban fabric and noticed that there was a public space there, like atrium or open space, and as well like talking.
You can find it in this interior, yeah.
Yeah. But I'll jump there. Yeah. And again, talking with the people who are kind of researching the place, we noticed that there was a public well, very important public well in Vilnius, where people would go to kind of get water from, which we thought is where we start. So this is basically a place. Yeah, I will jump, maybe plan is not of such importance here. And so the main thing here is what we thought to kind of work ironically, maybe with this genius loci thing, you know, like I think nowadays it's been very much speculated, like genius loci, you know, you do like this, like it used to be, you reconstruct things and so on. And we tried to kind of take a very different stance towards that. So we created a material, I don't know, blob you can call. It has many names actually. People are still calling it variously. It could be a mountain. It is actually an extract of a water for us to represent the well that was once in the area. And yeah, so maybe just to name the most important things. So we found in this particular interior, we found a way like how indirectly through material to represent the previous layers of the city. So to name this public well that was once there. And actually, while telling to people that, we noticed that it's kind of the information being spread and people coming back, someone who doesn't know us, and trying to kind of imagining that there are ruins of this well and they will find it in the interior. So we thought it's kind of a big thing for us. Something
maybe to say a few words, like protagonist, this alienated material, but also like the superimposition of previous urban fabric and the new one, and the experience that there was a public space there we also addressed, so we introduced intervention, but also we addressed all this, what is existing as rather not interior, but like outside space. We treat that all the interior as public space in some certain ruins, which we didn't develop as a I don't know, as a domesticated environment, but we left those ruins very open so that the layers and some superficial structures, which is the very building, they would be very obvious.
Yeah, also maybe I forgot to mention in this previous slide here that while thinking how to make the form and how to basically find a mode of making it, we decided to mix both like handwork and digital work in the same. So what you see here is slightly not recognizable whether it's like really hand or not, because at first it was like sculpted by hand, then it was scanned and then was mimicked like digitally. So it has like features that you like really cannot do either only by hand or by computer. Okay, here is the auction where we sold one piece of a mountain in the contemporary art auction. And here comes a second optic, which is not yet like fully finished, but you see the idea. It's located in a central avenue of Vilnius. It's this strange house which is blue here. At the end of the avenue you see the cathedral. Again, we dived into the history, and there are two important moments of the history of this building here. First one is during Soviet times there used to be a mineral water shop. Very like memorable one, right? Because anyone you talk to would tell you about these huge cisterns, like huge ones, where you can put a gassed apple juice or something like that. So we already like talking to people. I was asking my family and so on. They would give you this like memory of huge something, you know, huge apple juice.
Some sort of geographical images, but
yeah.
we couldn't find with quite big effort non-real documentation of.
Then if you ask like younger generation, they remember 90s and how this mineral water thing was converted into Metaxa bar. And at the moment, the company that provides mineral waters, they actually, I think the biggest importer of the alcohol in Lithuania. So it's already a very important moment to understand how mineral water somehow converted. Yeah. So, and this was also like place of cult. I remember like on my 6th grade or so passing by, it has like huge palms inside. The windows were darkened, as you see. It has this strong taste of postmodern, mimicking postmodern language and so on. So yeah, so these 2 points, and like a very little point not to forget as well was where you see a yellow dot there. There is a little bronze metal dog standing on a corner, which is a kind of important little figure into the street of Vilnius. People know it, people stop there and so on. And he also, by he I mean the dog, offered us some clue how to approach this new space of the optics. As you might, some of you or all of you or none of you know, that dog vision only captures 2 colors. It's like blue and yellow. So what you see colorful for them is just like blue and yellow. And having these previous things here, it already triggered our mind how to work further with this kind of knowledge that we gained during this research, which was not that much historical as in other projects of ours. So we jump here and you see the blue mountain here in a scale, in a comparison for what we thought. So it's like stalactite and stalagmite, if you want to name it, but it basically doesn't have a name again. It's just a mass that represents the previous states of a building, historical. So the first one is the first floor is for containers that were for mineral waters, and the second one is for like metaxa, the memory of metaxa, let's say. Of course, you always find some various research. You know, what we notice during our work, the more you research, the more things link together, and this is a great thing to basically gain from research. Like, let's say this, since the original function of a place is optics, so it's about looking far or looking close and so on. So we made this 3D stalagmites, and we noticed that, wow, this is glasses and so on, and then things like other people start working with that further. This is a few images. It's not yet finished, but so you feel a bit. Yeah, it's again very processual, and we are participating in it way more than just the architects. Oops. Okay, here. The next slide is about culture garden, where we try to be fast here, where is our studio based as well. So in 2020, City Mayor of Vilnius offered this former disabled people school building for cultural needs. There was a competition, and people from interdisciplinary art union won the competition together with our proposal to operate the building. Maybe there is how not to go too deep there, but maybe just to name like 3 lines that we are operating at the moment in this building. It's about processual design, about public space, the notion of public space, and material cycles. So there are plenty of examples about processual design, because it's never ending, and many people that gathering there, they always have like plenty of ideas how to do things. One of a nice thing is that of a collaboration is maybe how the colors naming the functions of a building by graphic design were transferred into a logo thing, which is like, I would say it's nice symbiosis with how architects can work with graphic designers and so on. Another thing there for us, important there for us, was a public space, to make public spaces not just outdoor. You see there is like 3 yards there, but as well indoor. We even made a model where you can see only the parts of a building that are open for the public. So it's not just the model of a building, but only these parts that you are able to walk through. In the main yard, we offered for municipality an idea to create something that, so the space would become a public space, not just for the users of cultural center, but as well for the citizens. This was a very important part for us. So the citizen know that it's a square of Vilnius. It's not a yard of like cultural center. And therefore, for this idea, we kind of looked around what's happening again. And what was happening was some demolishing icons, some already demolished icons and so on, and we thought it's an appropriate place to basically bring back the piece of icons and to rethink the archaeology as such. You know, these things you do not call this archaeology, but I mean, why not? Since the building, this particular building in Lithuania, it was like really important place where all the underground people would go. I don't know. There are so many memories, so many books or on it. People have I don't know. Yeah.
Sentiment.
Yeah, sentiments there and so on.
Well, maybe to give a little bit context, it's a Soviet building which is a symbol of power, and there was a huge debate of like to demolish it or not, and at some point one figure of power decided to demolish it without much discussion. And while the city all was on fire either to protest it or not, we kind of proposed a middle path. We said, please lend us some pieces of that object, and we will make a new public space out of that. From that, we developed gradually a whole concept how to make one public space, which Ona showed before, into some certain graveyard of lost city icons. To, like saying a little bit poetically. Maybe here, one interesting moment about being political is that, you know, we had this idea, we created some certain communication network with municipality, and they already kind of, many people in municipality started already speaking about this idea that we take pieces of demolishing building, make a new public space. It sounds good. But and while presenting our bridge, after the meeting of that bridge, one of the heads of the city one of the heads of the city just like said, well, he turned to us and he said, okay, it sounds very nice idea, but you should understand that we are a public actor. We cannot give public property, even though it sounds nice, to somebody who asks for it. There is no protocol about it.
No procedure. Yeah.
And it was some kind of instant invention in the tension of discussion. We said, but look differently into this thing. You are not giving it to us, you are giving it to yourself. Because we understood that actually we are renting that space from municipality, and we can just relocate so much different materials without actually, you know, having a conflict of private and public. So this opened the possibility of actually then like just for much bigger inquiry into different, I don't know, material assemblies of like
a city,
something what was
Vilnius.
lost because of renovations, demolishing, etc., etc. And then we created this park, semi-park, semi-graveyard of lost architectures. And last but not least, collaborations, which Johan started from. We will finish with that. We'll maybe jump through it. One of the first and very important collaborations which actually made a huge impact to our practice was Baltic Pavilion. I'll not explain the Baltic Pavilion here, but I will just say that actually every regional initiative which creates enthusiasm and a feeling of success and has its like continuation. I think maybe it didn't continue as a project, but it totally continues as a research environment and environment of colleagues, and it is very influential up until now. Another collaboration mode is like we have two more friends with whom we created a platform for projects which was killed, our studio and these two guys, and we did series of projects, including these bridges. So on our format, we created a platform for collaboration with projects so that we can actually speculate being a big office. We don't need to hire people. We rather act as a little bit more less egalitarian, a little bit more less hierarchical, and we gather and we like gorillas basically, yeah. But compete with big shots. Another collaboration mode, and very important, even though very subtle, is there is this Paku hardware art practice, and we did already maybe 8, I don't remember, or more projects with them, which is a continuous research into material and myth and speculation of these two. We usually are called architects in that collaboration, even though it's quite intermixed how it happens to become a result. Just a few pictures to name, it would be too much for one day to expand. Institutions, actually, through exhibitions, we collaborate with almost...
I would maybe jump in here as well. At some point, we noticed that not only collaboration with the people, but as well collaboration with institutions is making an important part of our practice, because we noticed that we are kind of continuing, we are collaborating in a continuous mode, and it's kind of the same debate continuing in various projects. Yeah, so
this Lithuania has Vilnius, let's say, first of all. Maybe it's all institutions from Vilnius. It has CAC, but also National Gallery, and another emerging institution, Radvilų Palace, and a small but quite active Rupert as a project space. With all of these, we made some collaborations, not one, and like actually while doing some initiatives there, we always made some certain inquiries of what it is, and it gives us some certain feel of institutional environment as such, like as a whole. Let's say, like, just to name a few examples, National Gallery, when they were asking us to, and we were invited to remake the whole main exhibition of the main collection, permanent one. Not only while actually creating this environment and structuring this narratives, we also proposed to reuse the previous exhibitions as materialities and to make the new one out of the scratches of the previous ones. So this dialogue went into becoming a result, and now when you are going through a National Gallery, you can see the art pieces, but you can also see fragments of previous exhibitions, and it's some certain
previous exhibitions designs,
yeah. And it's some certain, like, one of the first steps, grassroots, into discussion that the exhibition architecture generally is some certain particular culture, which, well, at least in Vilnius, there is no much overview of it and no much heritage about it, even though there are some spectacular ideas about environment which happened to become and gone. So we inquired what they have, and we tried to kind of put mirror back to that institution through. Okay, so this is a National Gallery, one of the latest projects from Jonas Mekas, and without explaining maybe the idea of the exhibition, maybe we will see that part of the intervention was actually to kind of dive in, find a material which they already have, and we found that they had a stockpile of partitions from 2005, before they can actually bought pieces of framework which they make these partitions for exhibitions, and we found that it was hidden somewhere in their storages of art pieces, and it was a problem for them, and it was a perfect solution for us to create less a formal, not laboratory hermetic environment for this in memory of personality of Makas. And so like through inquiry of hidden potential of this, of materialities in institutions, we kind of generates part of environments which we present to them. CAC projects, maybe just to name also, we kind of, this is a last project about eastern regions and Baltic Triennial, and we introduced, like, let's say, a psychographical approach, reframing, like basically hiding the building structure, and through it, like presenting a concept of region reading, but also we kind of presented some certain idea of recycling plastic and creating specific environment. In this case, to add about the plastic, we kind of found that they are doing trash bags, and when they are changing the color, they are, they are printing out something what is not pure before doing another one, and they are throwing it away to become again a universal plastic, and we just actually asked to lend it. So it was for exhibition, and it has a really quite impressive gradient expression, trash bags, and it became like main tool to create space for a huge exhibition, but it was zero resource and zero footprint. So well, we made some certain statement about urgencies. What's now? The crisis of environment, it is, we have so many questions what to do about it, but also like these institutional big projects, they create so much footprints, and we kind of through our architectural strategy, we raised a very bold question, like what could be done differently with doing zero budget and zero footprint scenography. These are pieces of process, and something else to say. And the Radvilai Museum, another important, let's say, collaborator, which we had at least few projects. I will just show that we hanged some almost 2-ton wooden beams just to represent the heaviness of the Soviet this context. And we actually brought those beams through a window. It was not...
the whole old town was closed just for those beams to reach the place.
Okay, not to go deeper. Please come to Vilnius. It is very important exhibition about Soviet dissident art, mostly from Moscow, St. Petersburg, but also from Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and it's called the protest art. Yeah, okay, maybe I'll not go there. And through making an exhibition, we kind of came into more intimate dialogue. Finally, the battery is almost dead. And we started changing the public spaces of the very institution through some particular interventions. One to name, through their, we made a table out of the floor. Okay. Because otherwise it would have been gone because of some functional needs, etc. I'll not go there. And this is, you see, as a scale bar, this is a director of the institution. We were really very in a good dialogue. Reusing materials, becoming identity and furnitures rather than buying it, like that was some strategy which we developed. And the last collaboration is Rupert, but I see the battery is low, so we try. We have, but no, we don't. It's a good, I think, scenographic. No, oh, sure.
Not like you. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys.
We
Okay,
had to end
still,
with
we try to
the
be
bat.
very fast. So there are like 3 exhibitions we did with Rupert. So we show 1 slide for each just to name the main ideas maybe, so you have an idea how and why. So this is Jonas Mekas, as a filmmaker, and we showed here in exhibition his poetry. So there was almost nothing else but poetry. So as a mode how to show these few pieces of poetry on a table, we did almost nothing, but just found a way of like relocating the surroundings into the exhibition space. So to maybe give a bit of a context, Rupert is on outskirts of Vilnius, so it's surrounded by nature and trees and so on, and much of Jonas Mekas' early poetry, which was shown on an exhibition, was about that, like rethinking the nature and like links in it and so on. Something else here, Entangled Tales.
You didn't
Huh?
say that we used
sorry.
camera obscura principle, so
Yeah.
we superimposed the very light, how it becomes image, with the projector light. That was the main tool.
Yeah, so it's basically just the whole, and everything from surroundings comes into the space. And we used, as you see, various modes of it, like in front, you see there are like just paper hanged there and many holes, so they kind of translate the live view, what's outdoors, in multiple screens there on this paper. Entangled Tales, maybe not to dive again into the whole exhibition, but we thought maybe at least for once we also try to do not exhibition architecture, but huge artwork instead of architecture. You know, like everyone are bringing pieces, and we are also joining with our piece. So we provided this giant structure with a skin, like certain skin that we were also researching, and this giant body, or whatever you call it, offered like many different ways for the artwork to be shown. And the last one is maybe the one where we started our studio almost. What?
So you tell.
It's your time.
Yeah, it's like this is where we begin, and it's a collaboration with artist Laurie Provost from France. She wanted to tell the story about how her grandfather somehow escaped Britain and ended up in Morocco, but it was a possibility for us to imagine a kind of underground pavilion which generates a space which seems like a very fragile underground environment, but altogether it's a super safe, almost a bunker type typology. It's a spontaneous environment which you can sense with all the senses, touch, smell, and perceive visually. And maybe here to say maybe it's always good to search for grassroots and bright future.
I would also maybe add a little bit of things here. Actually, Laura, she did this. It's very famous work, and she, she's a famous artist. She did like a few years ago French pavilion in Venice Biennale. She was searching forever, for ages, where she could dig this tunnel for this fictional character that was kind of was or was not a Kurt Schwitter's fellow artist who made a performance like showing how he's digging a tunnel, and suddenly he never came back. So during his performance he disappeared, and then she reframed this whole story into her thing, how her grandfather is digging a tunnel to reach, I think, to reach Australia, but actually doesn't matter, could be Morocco as well. So she was searching forever where could she dig this tunnel, like there and there, Germany, France, Great Britain, nowhere. And finally, somehow, it was not that easy in Lithuania as well, but when she landed in Lithuania, we managed to do that and to kind of find a place and make all the procedures for this thing. So I would end up here with something like Baltics full of space. Thank you, everyone. Someone alive.
I think, oh yes. Before I have questions from the audience, I have a question. What is your relationship, or how do you kind of position yourself to two words? One is new, and the other one is infrastructure. There's like two questions, two separate questions, because you kind of talk about them, but it's very kind of difficult to sometimes understand what is the kind of specific meaning. More interested in new and also infrastructure.
May I ask you back, Johan, why new? Why the new triggered somehow for you?
Maybe it's a bit personal, because somehow it's a kind of one task, perhaps, of a contemporary architect or contemporary designer, to kind of think of things anew, kind of to invent and to kind of give things new form, or give things kind of like an unexpected new kind of shape or kind of idea, and that kind of makes it stand out from what is there already. And you seemingly invent a lot of new things, but I don't know, like if you think of it as kind of new, or you kind of, why I'm asking is because it's a lot of recycled materials, a lot of kind of old, also in terms of archaeology. But do you have new in mind, or what does this kind of new have? Do you discuss this?
I think it's first of all, if ever it reaches the territory of news, starts with trying to step out of some particular current frames, which maybe limit. And I think, well, new always is happening without us. But if you are actually connecting things, the world is so complex that, I mean, the only way to not to make something new is to try not to connect with like different things, because otherwise, well, the hybridization of and connectivity always generates new. So maybe it's more natural than aspiration. Maybe it comes rather from the process of trying to connect, collaborate, and kind of step out of some certain restrictions, and then rather than aspiration itself.
Yeah, I think this is how we both started to work together as well. We somehow noticed in each other that trying to escape the existing patterns. And I mean, it's a very broad topic, but escaping the existing patterns is the key answer, I would say.
And infrastructure. Infrastructure, well, is something what, you notice when it doesn't work, and also it's kind of a how it's called, well, it reinforces something which is then more representative, more visible, more social. Infrastructure is kind of a hidden, but makes pragmatic works. And like public infrastructure is a particular space which somehow we understand that it has its own function, but also being in the hands of public, it can serve for wider public better things, yeah. Like, and in the light of actually like shrinking public space, meaning like maybe reflecting the neoliberal environment, which naturally fragments and shrinks the public sphere, making it work for itself as a rather private entity. In the light of these processes, the public space is kind of shrinking, becomes some shopping mall or well, etc., etc. It's something what is happening, and or either public space becomes not part of public tools. Like public cannot regulate it. Maybe it becomes a commercial. And like we understood that public infrastructure is accountable to public, and it can generate more public, I don't know, sphere rather than only a hidden function. So with these bridges, maybe is one discrete way to try to think about it. Expanding the public space is literally like very close to public space itself, but then we can think about Rail Baltica or other projects which could generate more public space if it would be more accountable, even though it has the obligation to be.
Hi. So my question is also a bit related to the first one. Given that your work is so context specific and so history sensitive, how do you feel about all these new tools of computational architecture like algorithmic design and parametric design and so on? Is it a new possibility to make more organic forms, to generate more context sensitive forms automatically, or is it the opposite, like allowing the architect to forget about the history and think about the imagined future worlds? So how do you feel about it?
Yeah, well, I would say that, either generative tools or I don't know, other tools, language tools. These are languages, the way these are our tools, how we reflect one things or another, and you can be contextual with any tool because it is your mirror, and either it is like digital, either you are molding from a block of clay, either you do it like in a classical way or you are doing it in other ways, but being contextual is rather is an idea and aspiration rather than limitation of tools.
Yeah, and this is actually the answer is also our optics shops, where we use this digital forming just to show this kind of digital language, post-internet language, or whatever you call it, just to show that genius loci as such, which is very historical term usually, can be shown in in various ways. And I think the answer is not whether this tool or another, is about how to make a right hybrid out of like mixing them. For one project, maybe this is more adequate. So, yeah.
Thanks.
More questions?
Amazing work. I'm really astonished. And I love the fact how sensitive it is, and the results are such a unique pieces of work that that I actually wanted to know more about the process itself, meaning that this you dig deep on the historical layers, the archaeology of the site, the materiality, or create new dialogues between that. It sort of felt like an academic approach to something that has a huge percentage of experimenting and research in a wider scale research. So I was just wondering. You answered that in your presentation, like, okay, so how do you train your workers, or like how do you pass on your working methods to them? But you said that you don't have helpers, you rather have collaborators, so you don't even actually have to pass it on. So I'm wondering if I could somehow sort of track down the workflow of your in your heads, or what would be the. How would you approach to this if you would need to map down the working methodology of your office?
I can answer shortly. We argue a lot, and we have this method of like arguing, like, and one of us is representing A, another representing B, and suddenly we argue like strongly, like, no, this or that. And then suddenly we switch somehow. None of us would notice, but suddenly the one who was representing A is representing B, and we are still arguing. So I don't know, like, we really noticing that. But it's a joke, of course, but...
yeah, we are quite flexible. We are not so much attached to what you invent in the beginning to continue it. I think every project creates a particular tool. Maybe it's not unique and not uniquely different from another project, but I think we are a little bit always shifting. There's this slogan that, we create tools and tools are recreating us, so there is some constant shift unless you decide to fix something, and there are many reasons why to fix something. Most of all is for efficiency. As we are not mostly oriented to efficiency, well, that's why maybe we shift a little bit more than
and I
the
would say,
efficient ones.
Yeah, maybe just being conscious, There are always changing circumstances around, so you just look around. You put things just like in many projects that we've shown, you put things that what's around one to next each other, and suddenly you start like seeing. Really, we notice that more and more. That crazy how the research can work. You put many things, and suddenly the new thing. How these optic things were working in the old times, where you have to cross your eyes, and you suddenly from certain image see something totally else.
Well, we work a lot.
Very sincere.
Do we have more questions? Let's call it. Thank you so much.